Effectively, anxiety is just your subconscious trying to keep you safe. So for whatever reason, it's learned that this particular activity, this particular situation is dangerous, and it then gives you these feelings. It creates the spike in heart rate, it creates the pressure, it stops you from being able to do the thing you want to do. But if you start framing it as, oh, my subconscious has just learnt an incorrect pattern, and if I can then make the changes, these patterns then won't repeat. And I think that's a healthy way of viewing anxiety as what it really is.
So I really want I want you to have credibility with people. I want them to take what you say seriously. When you say you work with high performance, give some examples of categories.
I work with Olympians, I've worked with UFC champions, I've worked with Wall Street traders, CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies, founders of lots of companies, lots of professional gamblers, professional poker players, some of the biggest sports gamblers in the world. So people where it really matters in the clutch moments, where the difference becoming first or second, is millions of dollars, and sometimes in fighting, also an injury.
Yeah, and a specific place where anxiety...
It shows itself.
And not helpful.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you work. And again, a lot of times, someone may come to you because anxiety is the issue, but a lot of times it's performance is the issue, and you discover, oh, wait.
That it is anxiety.
You got to work with anxiety. How do you work with somebody that's dealing with anxiety?
So first what we're doing is we're looking at where the issue is showing up in their life and how they physically feel it. So for anyone watching this, think about where you notice anxiety. And for some people, it's public speaking. For other people, it's making the sales call. For other people, it's firing the member of staff that you know you should be firing. And think about the sensation that it creates in your body. And it's different for everybody. So some people will say, I feel a pressure in my head. Other people, it's their heart's racing and they feel a heat in their chest. A sickness in their stomach is a common one as well. And then what we're looking to do is go into hypnotherapy, which there's no magic to it. It's just like guided meditation. It puts you in a different state, but it's not like the stage show hypnosis that people may be thinking of. And then we start digging into those feelings and where else in your life you felt those feelings. And this is something that you can do even outside of the hypnotherapy. So if you're watching this now, think about that sickness in your stomach when you think about public speaking, and then give yourself a few quiet moments to think about where else did that happen in my life. And typically, it will then start leading back through a narrative of memories that explain why it's particularly difficult for you. And often there's sort of a keystone initial memory that will show itself that really fits the narrative. So being mocked in front of the class by a teacher when you're 7 years old, and something along those lines, something that's very traumatic for a child but doesn't necessarily have to be traumatic through adult eyes. We'll then go back to those memories and we'll reframe them from an adult perspective. So the teacher mocking the child who wasn't able to read effectively in front of the class, instead of viewing that as a failure of the child, we switch that to a failure of a teacher who's probably just having a bad day. That this person is clearly not doing their job effectively. We can feel sorry for the fact that they're incapable of doing their job effectively, and we remove the pressure, the emotion from I'm a failure as a child to isn't it a shame this teacher's ineffective at their job. And as we start changing and reframing the memory and bringing in happier emotions to those memories, releasing the emotion, oftentimes there are tears around these sorts of moments, what happens is the mind no longer has it there as a core trigger because the memory is different. We're reshaping, changing the memories. So when these triggers happen in daily life, instead of being brought back to this traumatic time of being mocked, instead it comes back to this feeling of empathy for a teacher having a bad day at work. So we don't get that same extreme response, and we're just looking to do that through all of the memories. And there are other techniques as well, and we can utilize visualization. Seeing yourself doing it effectively is something that's very powerful, especially if you repeat that process. But I really feel the key part of the process that I do is this going back and making the shifts and the changes to these core memories that have taught us that something is dangerous. And if we think of it in terms of human evolution, it's actually quite effective to learn danger very young and then be very opposed to it. So if you're in a tribe and you stand up and you upset the leader, 20,000 years ago, that might have meant death, might be being kicked out of the tribe. If you're 3 years old and you and your mum see a tiger and she screams, you suddenly know that tigers are dangerous, and when you see a tiger again, you run away and you try and escape from the tiger. So the system that the mind is using was really, really effective through evolution and with us living in nature and in the jungles and wherever else. But for the modern world, it's just not so effective. And we're just retraining that process to be more effective for our modern lives.